Okay. Nope. It is not sharing the right version. I'm sorry. All right, I think I have it now. How long do you think we should wait? A few more minutes, or we anticipate any more souls? See Matt has,
I have just text right.
I'm happy to. I got it, and it's recording right now. I just don't know if I play around with it much. It's going to happen to me, so. I'm ready.
And so we do not have a quorum. And so I think what we have said we're going to do, since there is no quorum, we do have a lot of sort of informational, educational stuff to help y'all make a decision. We're going to go ahead and do that presentation and record it so that we can share that with y'all today and with everybody else on the recording. And then we will plan a follow-up virtual meeting to actually make a decision.
So, welcome. I'm Carol Fuller. I am the new director for Tarco, and I've been here about a year, but I have been doing prioritization for 2 years now. So I'm familiar with this process, less familiar with all the roads. So I will be giving an overview of the SPOT process, very high level, and looking at what more county projects are already in STIP, what ones are carried over, what were submitted the last round. Actually, I'm gonna sit because the only thing that's recording my voice is this computer. All right. So getting started, as a reminder to me, let's do introductions.
Pat Pizzella, Village Planners Council. Jeff Sanborn, Village Management Planners. John Strickland, Mayor, Planners. Brian Bouchard, MCTC.
Matt Day with the Triangle J Council of Governments.
Deborah Insegner, County Planning.
Stephanie Cormack, County Planning.
Thank you for that. So I laid out an agenda here. We're going to talk about prioritization 7 process, and then we're going to look at ranking projects. We don't have quorum, so we're not going to do that last step, but I will give my educational pieces. So basically, we're in round 7 of prioritization. It was officially adopted back in June of 2013, so 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. When we started that new process, it was actually at P3. So the process has a couple of different components. Basically, the STI law, when it was established, wanted to make the process data-driven and more objective, less, I'm not quite sure how to put this, but more data, more information to make better decisions. And so the biggest part of this that we do is called the SPOT score. So DOT, along with a work group, develops a process and a scoring set, and they take all of these projects in, usually over about 2,000 projects statewide, covering all of the modes from highway to ferry, and they look at different things, safety, congestion for highways, for example, and other criteria, and score them, and then create what we call a SPOT score. And then the next part of the process is we put local input points on those. Not on all of the projects, because there's like 3 tiers. We don't have a lot of influence over the statewide category, but we have local input at the regional and the division tier. And so we have to develop a methodology because our process needs to be transparent and available to the public, TARPO's process. And so we developed that as part of TARPO. We then assign draft points, local input points based on that methodology. And then we have a couple of meetings and we assign final local input points, and we can make changes there. We call it deviations. We can deviate from those draft local input points based on what the TAC or our governing board says. And I will say at the regional tier, we have, out of 100, we have 15 points, and the division has 15. And we'll go down to the division tier, the lowest tier, the local input is 50%. And it's split again evenly between the POs or TARPO and division 8 or 7 evenly, so 25-25. So then they take the local input points and the score and add them up and get what we call a final score. And then the STIP office, which does the programming for this, for the statewide transportation improvement program, they consider other factors. How far is it along? Does it have NEPA documents? What are the federal requirements? Is this going to fit in this year or the next year, because they have constraints around how much they can spend per year? And then they create this 10-year document of all the projects that DOT is going to work on and start to build. So that's like high level overview. I have a little bit more in detail, which I mentioned a little bit. So there are 3 tiers, which I mentioned. The statewide tier receives 40% of all of the funding, and it is not all of the modes. It is, for TARPO, it's rail, but only freight rail and highways. But it's only certain highways. It's all the interstates, if we had any, US 15, 501, US 64, US 1, and US 421. And it only counts for certain projects on those and some of those roads. Again, it's completely data driven. So the SPOT score counts 100% and there's no local input. So if you submit a project that's at the statewide tier and that project scores high enough, it's funded. It doesn't come back to TARPO for local input. At the regional tier, we get 30% of the funding. Again, for TARPO, rail and certain highways qualify. It includes everything above, so everything cascades down. And for regional, includes all US routes and all NC routes and everything that was in the statewide category. 70% of the score is the SPOT quantitative score and 30% is local input. And again, it's split between TARPO and division 7 or 8. And then the final tier is division. It's 30% of the funding again. For TARPO, for the state, it's all state maintained roads, including all of the above that I've talked about: public transit, rail, and bike and ped.
And I guess I left off aviation, but it also includes aviation. 50% of the score is the spot score, and 50% is local input points, split between Tarpo and Division 7 and 8. So that's like the high level of spot process or prioritization process. Did you guys have any questions? Okay. So I'm looking at trying to get to,
You go back to this slide. Is there any way to have like an example? Just one sort of project X, how would you hit these points? Asking the right question?
Yes.
I'm reading a narrative and the definitions, but I'm trying to translate that into.
So an example of a statewide project, a statewide eligible project would be something on US one. So something like the US one Super Street project,
Okay.
that would be statewide eligible, but it's also eligible for the other tiers as well.
And the score subtly changes, of course, because at the statewide tier, it's 100%. And at regional, it's only 70%, but there are also changes inside. So the numbers aren't, the score isn't the same at each tier. It does change.
So under statewide wise, 40% of the funding, it could be get 100% funded.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's 40% of the total funding in the state goes to that bucket.
Okay. But a project could get fully funded.
Yes.
A project could get fully funded at every tier, depending on what mode it is. A highway project would get fully funded at every tier. Bike and ped, because of the legislature, as an example, it's only eligible at division, and it would only be able to get 80% funding. So it depends on the mode, but highways, if a highway qualifies at any tier, it will be 100% funded.
I guess point of clarity on the slide, 40% of funding is 40% of the funding that is allocated to improvements. It's not 40% of project.
Right. It's not an individual project. It's 40% of the pot the DOT has. And
So if DOT has $1 billion a year to spend, then 400 million of that goes to that fund.
yeah, we have a lovely visual that shows it as buckets. So it's a little bit, but I was trying to keep it relatively simple and just do an overview. Are there other questions? I mean, if you have others, let me know. Feel free to interrupt me later. So looking at the STIP, or the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, we are currently operating on under one. We always are. And there is one funded project in Moore County. Right now, it's NC 211 from US 15501 in Aberdeen to east of SR 1244 in Rayford, assuming I pronounced that correctly. And it's widened that to multi-lanes. That's the only project that is in the current STIP. And I put a map link. I'll be happy to send, we're going to be sending out this presentation, but that will take you to a online map of all of the 2020 to 2029 STIP projects. Yeah, Matt?
I don't think that's the only current STIP project.
No?
No, there should be quite a few.
All right. Well, I apologize. I can correct this when I send it out and, okay. Yeah, I apologize. I don't know why I thought that, but I will correct it. Oh, he's got the list. The traffic circle. Yeah, I just realized, yeah, even that one's, yeah.
I know what happened. You were looking at the thing I was handwriting, and I only started to write.
Oh. That's my mistake. I'm sorry. When you said there was, I just looked at the list and then I pulled that one in.
But yeah, there there should be, the 211 West project out at Seven Lakes, there should be, NC5.
You said this already, I clicked on
Yeah.
it.
It was a guy that was super. Yeah.
Is it, Matt, is it showing the map on here, on your screen up there?
No, it's still in the slideshow.
Oh, okay. Because I have the map up and let's,
Ma'am, while we're looking, what qualifies as qualifying highway? Size, traffic flow, location,
at each of the tiers, it is based on, so all the interstates and some of the US routes qualify at the statewide tier. It depends on their highway functional.
It depends on if they're in the national highway system as a whole.
So it's only interstates and certain US routes at statewide. At the regional level, it's all US routes and all NC routes. So if it has an NC on it, then it's eligible. And at the division, it's every state maintained road, and actually in certain cases municipal roads, but it's circumstances, yeah. But if you're talking about bike and ped, yes, you can ask for bike and ped improvements along a municipal street. So that is definitely allowed. Okay. Am I right? There's only 3 carryover or 2 carryover projects? Okay. So, so the next thing, and why we're looking at this list, the carryovers, is if these are priorities for you, you don't need to put them down on your list again, because they're going to be submitted automatically into the P7 process and scored. So we have, and I'm going to get to this a little bit later, but Tarpo has a number of submittals. And all of the Moore County projects are going to come to Tarpo, and I'm going to submit them. We get 23 submittals, and we spread those out across the 4 counties that we have. What happens is there's a subcommittee, and the subcommittee agreed that every county will get to submit 5 new projects, and they would be guaranteed 5 new projects. They can submit 6 or 7 if they'd like, but there's no guarantee that the 6th or 7th project would actually be submitted. It would depend on what everybody else submits. So it's a little bit variable, but
And that is specifically.
it's on highway on, and I have a little bit better breakdown of what I'm saying in a couple of slides. So I'll leave the rest of it there, but just so you know that this is why we care about carryovers, because this one will not count against those 5 or 6 projects.
And I will also say, correct me if I'm wrong, in the past, typically if it was something that was a carryover that y'all decided you did not want to have resubmitted for whatever reason,
You could replace it.
Remove it and then get an extra resubmit.
I just need to know that by the end of July, if you're willing to, because I have a hard deadline for that. So, these are prioritization 6 projects. So we're on round 7. There was a round 6, and Tarpo did solicit new projects for round 6, but round 6 was never finished. So the projects were submitted and scored, but they weren't picked up in the STIP because DOT had several related issues: COVID, funding issues, supply chain, and a few other issues. And so we stopped the P6 process before we completed it. And what happened, the draft STIP that's being submitted, as Brian said, next month, we took the 2020 to 2029 STIP, and I say we, mainly DOT, but we all work together, and we are actually pulling projects out of that and uncommitting those and moving a section of the 2020 to 2029 into the next STIP. And so what I'm talking about now, right here, is not, is the 2026 to 2035 STIP. So none of these projects would likely go to right-of-way or construction before, I mean, there's only 2 years, in best case, there's only 2 years of committed funding for the first 5 years. And then all of the other projects would go into the developmental STIP, which is the back half. And those projects aren't committed. So they will be reprioritized the next time we do a round. And we do a round usually every 2 years. So just so you guys understand, it's a long process. Even if a project gets picked up by the STIP, it doesn't mean we won't have to reprioritize it again next time. And so then I have put all of the P6 projects that you guys submitted the last round. I have reordered them by their spot score in division, because I had to pick something. And they're all on these next slides. So I don't know if you want me to read them all. I'm happy to make these slides available if you have questions. And the spot process does cover all modes. So there are bike projects in here, as well as highway projects and transit and or rail. I did take out the 2 carryover projects, but the next 5 slides are just the projects that were submitted in Moore County. They may not have all been, and I know they were not all submitted by TARPO. Some of them were submitted by the division, and some of them were carryovers from the previous round.
Was also one submitted by.
And there was 2 rail projects, neither of which I believe were submitted by TARPO that are well, actually, I guess they didn't come to Moore County. I think one of them came into Moore County, but I looked at the P6 map. So these are all the projects. And a map of the P6 projects is also available. That's what this link is below. So you can go and look at a map of them, not just read this description. Again, I will make the PowerPoint available after the meeting. They're all there. One, I believe I was asked, and Matt actually provided this to me, an analysis of what we thought would be good enough spot score. So if you're using a P6 project as one of your new submittals, which is great, I'm all for that, and it scored a 16 last time, it is likely not going to score vastly different this round. Maybe a little, depending on what type of project it is, but a 16 is highly unlikely to be picked up. You need to get, as a general rule of thumb, at statewide, it usually starts in the 60s. I have an analysis, I can send it out when I send the PowerPoint out, or which Matt did for me. Or you usually have to get at least half of the points. Statewide usually starts in the 60s. Regional usually starts for a spot score of at least 30 to 35. And division, if you're not over 20, it's unlikely that it will matter. I don't know what just happened here, but I'm not sharing my, what are we seeing on the screen?
Opening slide.
Okay, all right. So just as an FYI to that, which is why I did include the spot score, we just got done with the work group. We did not make that many changes, especially to highway. So, and other possible projects that have been mentioned in the past is NC 22 and or Airport Road, the Carthage Byway, the Western Connector, and the full Poplar Broad Connector. Any of those, if you're interested in those being, we can work on them as well. So
those were just things that were discussed in prior rounds, but were not submitted.
There, even though those are never scored.
Yes, you can submit anything. You do not, you don't feel like you're constrained for resubmitting the same thing last time.
Yeah.
It's just, we wanted to provide you the list of what you did submit last time, so that chances are pretty good that your priority priorities 4 years ago are still pretty similar to your priorities now.
And also, so you have the scores. So, if something that was sort of a priority scores like a 10, well, then, that would be one that I would replace with something else. Unless you think something's changed about it. We haven't changed the scoring, but things could have changed about the conditions that would make it score better. But 4 years is a little bit of a short time for that.
For a project that has never been previously considered, how much detail do you need for this?
For a highway project, surprisingly little.
From and to what you want.
Like, is this a 4-lane divided road? Is this a 2-lane road? That's kind of the level of information.
Because we will work with division staff to develop a cost estimate. Plus we have a default that we can do. Just understand that will probably end up in the back half of the STIP, and in the next round, what will happen is more preliminary engineering will get done, and then it will be reprioritized, and we'll have a better cost estimate the next time. But
Just my own education, Poplar Road, where is that?
Aberdeen.
It connects Aberdeen to Southern Conference. The railroad is it's a little section of the food line.
and I started mentioning this earlier. So for TARPO, we do the project submissions for all the modes. Yeah, all the modes, in some way, shape, or form. And right now we have 23 slots for each mode. So for highways, every county is guaranteed 5 slots, but we ask that you send us 6 or 7 in the 6th and 7th in rank order. So if something happens, we can add another project, and we just want to know where you rank it. The first 5, it doesn't matter so much, but the 6th and 7th, just so that we know which one you would prefer if we do have another slot. Each county, except for Orange, is guaranteed 7 slots for bike and ped and can submit up to 9. I think we were talking in my previous meeting an hour ago that we were going to suggest doing a little bit more than 9 if you want to do 10 or 11, because the division doesn't generally submit bike and ped projects. Their slots are available for us to partially use, but we are one of 8 organization or 8 counties. And so there are other counties that will also ask for those slots. So send me a couple extra. If we can have the division submit them, we will. If not, then we won't. But you're guaranteed 7. If you submit us a few extras, we will do our best to get them submitted, but there are no guarantees. There's no cap on rail, aviation, or transit. And I just listed the schedule. Those are basically the subcommittee, but the big points are, I would like to present a draft of your slate, especially for highway and bike and ped, to the RPO boards on June, the second Thursday in June. And I also have to send it out for public comment. So it'll be happening, it's June 8th. I'm proposing a public comment from June 12th to just before July 13th, I think, somewhere in that range. And then TARPO board will be asked to adopt the slate of projects at their August meeting. So we'll take all of the county as a subcommittee and put those projects together and present those to the TARPO board. So that's the plan. And the reason why it's so tight is because I have to submit those projects by the end of September. September 29th is when Spot Online closes. And if you're not completed, then it doesn't matter. It won't be scored. So I need to have everything by that time. If you have questions, again, please interrupt. I'm happy to take
Just on that
notes.
point, so there will be a voting process. Sometime after this, we have a quorum or not, and then if we have members that have been set, several committees that aren't, never the process early. So at what point do we reappoint committee members to ensure we have 9?
Well, because of the FPO, And we needed an MCTC permit because we didn't have a CCTV, so. So after the MPO is established, then this will.
Okay. So we're gonna schedule another meeting after this,
Yes.
and the idea is to get a draft decision out of that meeting. So if there are new projects to be brought to the table, we'll bring them to that meeting and just kind of toss them out there.
So I can tell you how this has worked. I can tell you what happened 4 years ago. When we had this conversation. So 4 years ago, we did a similar presentation. We said, here's what you submitted in the previous round. And then, you know, the group kind of sat around and said, well, you know, that project and that project, they're not priorities anymore. So, okay, we have like 3 slots per, let's keep the rest of the slate we had previously, but we have 3 holes to fill. And so let's talk as a group about what 3 projects we'd like to submit them. So it worked 4 years ago, but that was in person. It is harder to do that kind of thing on a virtual meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to try and do a meeting in person if that will work. And we do take concepts and, you know, if the concept is what you want, I mean, you see a deficiency and you'd like something fixed, we will take it as far as we can take it and have the division help us and put it in. That doesn't mean it will be perfect or that we wouldn't need to be making changes to it at the next round. I can't guarantee that. Unfortunately, I'm not an engineer and we only have a limited amount of time, but we generally, this is what RPOs tend to do. DOT would like us to get further along and ask these questions even earlier so that we can, and we have been. But if you have something new that's popped up, then yes, please bring it. And as much information as you have, and we can submit it. Spot doesn't require, you know, a full, we just need to be able to pick a cross section for the process so that we can score it.
And I would also say, we don't need to have all fine details ironed out by June or even by August. We just need to have that ironed out by the time she gets the button to submit them to the state at the end of September.
So we're competing with.
There's time to work.
So
There'll be iterations of this analysis.
We had a meeting today and Sanford's ready to hit the button. He wants, how many, if I can bid. He evidently has a lot that he can submit, so he's waiting. He wants to know what everyone else. We can be everyone.
And just, I think you all already know this, but just as a reminder, the reason why you're having to do this through the RPO still, obviously, because we don't have that in place. When there was in place, this, how this process will work once that happens, that's anybody's question. We're at least gonna get your projects submitted.
And this is that analysis that Matt did that looked at the scores and the median and then the top 25. So if you have a spot score and you don't have to have one to submit a project, this is what it's going to take to get it to be in the step. So if it's really low, either change it or really think hard about whether you want to resubmit it, because our scoring process hasn't changed that dramatically. It will likely score low again. So.
Another perhaps weird question, but so you told us earlier on that in order to compete at anything other than division level, it has to be a state or US route, right? Federal highway. What if it's a new road? Yeah, so like, for example, we have one there on the other potential projects, like the Western Connector. So a project of that scale is only completed,
So what we would have to do in that case,
yeah,
is we would have to work with the division, and get them to agree that that's the needs to be signed as. And so.
so no state road number.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has to be done ahead of time. Or it only competes at the division level. We've had this conversation previously. I had a,
A project like that would wipe out the leaves. But
that's the other thing to consider. You know, we're not talking about a lot of money, and actually I should put this huge caveat on this whole thing. When we did the, P6 process and stopped it and did what we did to create the 2024 STIP, one of our driving goals was to leave some money in each bucket. So there's 22 buckets because there's 1 statewide and 7 regions and 14 divisions. There was money in the bucket when we did that for all of them. I'm not sure there's a lot of money in the bucket still left in all of them because we still have cost overruns. We've still had supply chain issues. So I don't know, even for P7, that there is a ton of money, even for Division 8, which has actually usually done okay. So just to keep that in mind when you're talking about big projects, because yeah, one project like that could wipe out the entire division pot. So.
if we submit something like that, at least we can get score feedback.
Right, and if you really like it, and you think you're gonna submit it again, generally DOT's been willing to put that in line to get some preliminary engineering done. So, or what they call conceptual, and it's like, it's not a full feasibility study, but it gives you some idea of the costs and some of the idea of the issues. So they have been willing to do that. Actually, they would like to do that on almost every project that before we submit it to SPOT. So other questions, comments? So I don't have much else. I did have like an others update. There's a model being done for Moore County, and that's not gonna, we're not gonna see much from that until the spring. And I mean, we've talked a little bit about the MPO. I don't know if we need to talk about it anymore. So I guess my questions to you is, one would be do you want me to send out a doodle poll to set up another meeting? Do you want it to be in person? Is there other data that I can give to you, or I can ask Division 8 to give to you?
What I would recommend for this is to look at the list from the last year. See if there's things on there that you definitely don't want anymore. Yeah, I think so. But there are things on there, and we can send out specifically a list that says this was the list of what you as Moore County submitted last time.
I did.
Okay.
I did. I even asked Deborah, I said, we should have a starting place. I'm gonna send out, she's like, yeah, that's what we agreed. I'm like, good, I'm gonna send that out.
So I think I would start with, if there's things on there that we don't need anymore, either because they're not priorities anymore, or because they scored really terribly, and it's just not worth leaving them on the list. Well, that's helpful in terms of kind of figuring out, okay, after we remove that, how many projects do we have left? We know we only get to submit 5. We know the division can submit some, so maybe we can talk to them and see if they submit. But
And some of those on that list are ones that the division submitted last time. So if it's, we could probably convince them to take some of theirs that they submitted and resubmit them.
To that point, there's a lot more than 5 highway projects.
Yes.
And that's because, I believe the list you're looking at includes the ones that Harpo submitted, as well as the ones that were carryover projects last time around.
Most of the divisions.
The division submittals, the other RPO that submitted one that crossed over, like, so it's all of that. I can read this, what Moore County actually submitted. I believe y'all submitted 6 last time.
I can list each numbers if you want.
So for highway, Moore County submitted, and I don't have the H numbers on this list. We submitted 15501 widening from NC 73.
Yes.
We submitted 15501 widening from 2427 Cartilage up to US 1 Trammell.
147%.
Super Street on US 1 between NC 2 and Southern Pines.
727. Yes.
211 widening from Holly Grove School Road to US 220.
That's east of Canada.
Yeah.
158 and 158.
Access management on NC 2 from Airport Road to NC 22. And then Poplar Street extension to Saunders Boulevard. Yeah, but it was half of it. So yeah, it was not the full project. We only submitted half of it.
Last students were.
So anything else on the highway list was submitted?
Just a quick question. The roads that we realigned, or on the Super Street cut out the section, cut it up in sections, and they took out the roads and realigned it from it. And now it's here.
So I think the one that's on here is different from the, so I think what's on here was actually to build a new bridge from the river.
Which is part of the Western Packer framework. Is that right?
Possibly.
There's that last one that we used to, hopefully it makes more sense. It goes over the. Yeah. And it serves a purpose even without the Western. It's another bridge. Long bridge.
It's unfortunate they couldn't have just realigned the bridge they just built.
Yeah.
We did submit that as a. Yeah. Yeah, well, this one at times, it's about wide beams before.
So 5501 is the one for that's the project that's 55.
We can try to rely on that.
Maybe. This one here?
Yeah.
I can reach out and ask Janet if well, as we get closer, that's when they're gonna resubmit.
Yeah, I guess it would make sense.
We try not to do that. Yeah. And we try and work with the division to make sure they're not, or we're not duplicating either, because. But also know that the division only gets 14 submittals. So, and they have 8 counties, so.
So, I guess maybe a question for Joel. What information could Carol provide to help get you ready to make a decision?
So, our party session, 5 and 3.
Yeah, I'm happy to do the recording and the PowerPoint. If you need me, I mean, I sent you the P6 projects. If you need other projects or something else, reach out. I'm always happy to find some data and send it on to you guys. So, I assume a doodle poll will work, or do you want to pick a date? Okay. And did you want to meet in person, or do you think we can do this virtually? Personally? Okay. I thought you were saying virtually, and I'm like, I'd really think we person if we can. All right. So it won't happen next week. Should I try? I'm gonna try before the end of May, if that works for everybody. Okay. All right.